Hey, welcome back to SWG's Woodworking Off the Bench podcast. We're back with another great episode, and we got another guest today. He's part of the community wood shop. Seen him around and met him, and I'd like him to introduce yourself. You can say your first name, last name, whatever you want to say, and introduce yourself and all that.
I'm Tom Checketts. You want me to go into how much or?
Well, you can give as much or as little as you like. Okay. It don't matter. I mean, whatever you're comfortable with.
Tom Checketts. I've been a member of the community wood shop here for almost a year now. Met Sheldon here maybe 6-7 months ago. I have a little bit of a kind of a hobby lumber business. I acquire lumber from the Midwest, bring it back here and sell it. So it's that's my introduction.
Oh, right on. One thing I forgot was I got to shout out the community wood shop of Salt Lake City. They allow us to do these interviews in their shop. Normally there's nobody here right now, so it's kind of cool for us because we can talk and hear each other. But it's kind of quiet. Sometimes it's cool to do the interviews when people are working, and because it's an active shop. And but yeah, shout out to the community wood shop SLC, and then I also have to shout out my dad for all the equipment because he's helped me set up all the equipment. So, but sorry, that was just I should have got that in before.
Not a problem.
Well, Tom, like you said, I met you. Yeah, I've been coming here about a year, but I didn't really introduce. I was kind of shy. I started introducing myself, and I met you a few months ago, and how did you get into woodworking? Or you're a woodworker, right? Or you're more of a how'd you get into woodworking?
I'm a hobby woodworker.
Okay.
And it probably started as a child. You know, my dad was not. He could do things, but he did not like doing things.
Okay.
So he was a school teacher. I don't know why or where he got it, but he always had a pile of used lumber in the backyard, and a lot of it I think was for bonfires. We'd have bonfires once or twice a year, invite the whole neighborhood over. So we always had the pile of lumber, and my dad let me do whatever I wanted with it. So I made a lot of huts and forts as a younger kid, and then 10, 11, 12 years old, I got into raising rabbits and chickens and pigeons. So my first rabbit hutch, my dad and I built together. I was probably 10 years old. I remember being with him and thinking how cool that was that we could actually make this rabbit hutch. We used one of his old belts, cut it up for the hinges, you know. It was just handsaw and hammer and nails. But it was...
I don't know if you're going to cover it.
The mic?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We can move it.
No.
We can move it up here so it's a little more... Sorry.
No, I'll have to talk softer. It's
closer. Some things I'm still learning as doing this is getting all my equipment in the right spots. So, yeah.
But anyway, so that's what started it. He and I built that first hutch, and then after that I built others, and then got into chickens and pigeons, and I had a chicken coop that was, probably 12 by 12 that I built, and probably tore it down and rebuilt it 3 or 4 times from the age of 12 to 13, 14, and but then 13 years old, my grandfather passed away. So I would go in and spend quite a bit of time with my grandmother, and she was kind of an ornery lady. I don't know. I look back on it. I don't know why I like being in there, but I loved going and spend time with my grandmothers. But she had certain rules: no TV till 5 o'clock in the evening. There was nothing to do for a 13, 14-year-old kid, and no neighbors my age, But my grandfather had a shop full of tools, and my grandmother was pleased that I wanted to spend time out in the shop because that meant I wasn't in the house bugging her.
Right.
And so I learned how to use power tools at 14 years old by myself. I remember the first time I turned on the table saw. And no fence, no guides, and I took a 4-foot long board and pushed it through the table saw, and I lived to tell about it.
You still have all your digits.
Yeah, I still have all my digits. I look back on, I did not use the tools properly or safely,
Right.
but I learned the hard way without getting injured or without bad hurts or anything. But so I made a lot of fun stuff, and from then till I was about 16 or 17, and so that's kind of how I got my start. I took a shop class in junior high and hated it.
Yeah.
I did not enjoy that at all, and I didn't take any other shop classes. But so everything's been self-taught since then. And then as a young father, we needed bunk beds, so I went and bought a table saw and 4x4 posts from Home Depot and 2x6s, and I built bunk beds for our boys, which they slept in those bunk beds till they were teenagers, and so that's kind of the experience. It started there and kind of expanded.
So you said your grandfather passed away when you were young.
Yeah.
But you spend money, or not money, spend time at your grandmother's house, but you spent your time in your grandfather's shop.
Yeah.
Teaching. So you never had any formal, it was just what you learned in the shop.
Trial and error
on your own.
Yeah.
And then during school, you said you took a shop class and you hated it.
Yeah.
Was that because it was structured and ruled
structured.
and had to do it a very specific way? I know when I was in middle school, the shop class was miserable because it was so structured.
Yeah.
But when I got to high school, after I took my freshman year of shop, it was old. I mean, you had freedom. So
and I should have done that.
Yeah.
I didn't because of my experience in junior high.
It just soured you a little bit so you went and just taught yourself on your own the rest of the time.
I think I was fairly young. I made a piano bench for my mom, and I think my sister still uses that piano bench. So and I turned the legs. My grandfather had a spindle lathe, one of those tabletop spindle lathes, and so I actually turned the legs on that, and it was a good experience, good way to learn, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Take some classes, learn from somebody else a little bit.
Then in my early 20s, I went and worked for a cabinet shop. I had a good friend that owned a cabinet shop, and he needed help, and I needed a job at the same time. So I worked for him for about 6 months, and all I did was build drawers. So that's probably the only formal training I had was in that cabinet shop. And even then it was just, okay, this is what we do. And they turned me loose. It's a good experience.
Yeah. Do you teach or help people learn now, or is that not really your thing? Or
not really with wood carving. I do enjoy helping people get into wood carving. I do a lot of wood carving at home. When I was, we lived in, it's been 25 years now, but we lived in Minneapolis, Minnesota for 5 years, and while there, I worked part-time for Rockler, and this was before Rockler expanded. At the time they only had maybe half a dozen stores that were in the upper Midwest, and I taught classes there.
Okay.
Scroll saw and carving and kids woodworking, bring kids in. I did a lot of scout stuff with woodworking too, especially when my boys were in scouts. So that's about the extent of my teaching. We are going to do a carving class here at the community wood shop, and I'll be teaching that in June. So that'll be kind of a fun experience. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So, as far as the woodworking, you can pretty much do it all if you really needed to, right? Or like building furniture and things, you could figure it out how to do it.
Yeah.
But what's your sounds like carving? Is that your specialty, or
I don't have a specialty?
You don't have you're a jack of all trades.
Yeah, it's whatever. Building the bigger stuff, I don't enjoy.
Okay.
Because it takes forever, and I'm not a patient person. So, for example, I think Well, I've built several things. We don't have much of the furniture I've built over the years, but we've got a few pieces. But I built a headboard and footboard, and it was a New Yankee Workshop is one of their plans,
Oh
early
yeah,
on.
yeah. I've
And
used a
it was
couple of their stuff.
craftsman style, made out of cherry. Yeah, it's gorgeous headboard, footboard. We end up moving up from a queen to a king size bed, so we end up giving the bed to my son, and they use it in one of their spare rooms. In fact, I still get to sleep in that bed when I go visit my son in Georgia. But that bed took 7 years to make.
Oh wow.
Because I would work on it and I'd get bored with it and I'd push it aside and I'd do. Most of my woodworking projects are smaller projects. I learned how to use a lathe, and if you want to get out of woodworking, buy a lathe, because once you start on a lathe, that's all you want to do. It's really strange, but it's very satisfying to do lathe work, because usually you can start a project and finish it within a couple hours, and depending on the project. But most projects you can start and finish, and I enjoyed that part of it. And then the wood carving I like, because I'm a night person.
Okay.
And I usually don't go to bed till 1 or 2 in the morning, so.
Well, hopefully I didn't get you up early today to do this.
No, yeah, you did, but I needed to get up. I got, this week's going to be a busy week, so. But anyways, the wood carving, I can turn an old movie on, and, or even a good movie, and sit and carve. And a lot of times, there was one night 2 or 3 weeks ago that I'm carving and I'm really into my carving, and the movie ended and I turned on Pandora. I was listening to music and carving, and I realized I was yawning, and I look at the clock and it's 4:30 in the morning.
Oh no.
And I'm sitting there carving. So it's carving's a very relaxing thing that I can do anywhere at any time.
Okay.
And, I've carved in traffic. I got stuck in Minnesota one year. Coming to a tunnel in Minneapolis on my way home from work, and there was an accident in the tunnel, and I was at the point where there was no way to turn around, and I sat there for about 3 hours, and so I sat and carved. The van was full of wood chips by the time I got through that traffic jam.
That's what I was going to ask. I know a lathe that can make a humongous mess, but I guess carving would do just in a lot slower process. Make a mess.
And they're easy. It's not the fine dust. It's just chips. And when we go on vacation, I always take carving or camping. So.
How does your family react? Do they like? That's just what Dad does?
Yeah.
I'm going to leave him alone. That's his thing. Or is it like, come enjoy us, be with us,
No,
So,
they're it's just, that's Dad. That's Grandpa. That's what he does. So I do have several grandkids that carve, and that's been fun to kind of help them learn how. And they're all. I got 3 of them that they're at the point. The oldest one's 16, the youngest one's 12 out of those 3, and they're at the point where they don't ask for help very often. They carve some pretty cool stuff.
Well, cool. That kind of transitions us into another question. Is like, you talk about your grandkids learning carving, and how do you think the next generation of, because woodworking is like kind of a trade or hard. It's a hobby for a lot of us at the community wood shop. We just do it on the side. But do you think young people are? I don't see a lot of like young people here, but I feel like I'm the youngest person here, and I'm in my 40s. So, but there is younger people here that we work with. But like that young, I don't know what they call them these days, but between like 10 and 18. How do you think they're? Do you think they're really diving into woodworking, or what's from your experience?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that will do woodworking as they get older, because when you're that age, teenage years, there's so many things going on in your life, and most of those kids are involved in sports or music or different things like that, and those are usually things that fade out as they get older and they look for things to replace that.
Right.
So So I think with the woodworking opportunities there are today, I don't see a problem with woodworking ever going away. 'Cause
Right.
places like this community wood shop, there's another place in Salt Lake that's kind of similar with all makers.
Yeah.
That's an odd term. I hate the term makers, but
Yeah.
that's how they advertise it, you know.
Yeah, they have all kinds of different.
Yeah,
They do more than just wheat.
A lot of craft and
Yeah.
not just woodworking, but
Yeah,
other
they do all
stuff.
kinds of stuff.
But then you've got there's wood carving clubs, wood carving groups. There's wood turning clubs. 3 that I know of, wood turning clubs here in the Wasatch Front. You got Woodcraft and Rockler that are teaching classes. So there's lots of opportunities. I think it'll grow before it diminishes. So
Right. Yeah. So you don't think woodworking's never going away? It's
No.
going to be
No,
as long
I
as we
don't
got
think so.
trees,
Yeah.
there'll be woodworking, right?
That's right.
So, well, yeah, that's cool. So you're part of the community wood shop. So am I. I see you down here on occasion. You don't do a lot of work because you're more of what you do is carve for your person is carving, but you prepare wood down here a lot too because we have a big planer and a big joiner.
Yeah.
And so that's what I see you mostly doing. And so what do you do when you're preparing that big? When you're milling it down for? Is it for carving? Is it for other stuff?
So that's the main reason I joined the wood shop was
Okay.
for the planer and the joiner, the big one. I've got a benchtop planer at home. I've got a small hobby wood shop at home. It's basically a one-stall garage, and I do a lot of stuff out of that. And I used to. I go to the Midwest. I buy lumber, bring it back, and then sell it. And the way I got started in that was with, longer story than that, but it was mainly to do the basswood for wood carving. Because there is not a place here in Utah that you can buy good quality basswood.
Okay.
The lumber yards here sell basswood, but it's more for construction. Basswood, lightweight wood, they use it a lot for wooden shutters or blinds.
Okay.
And so that's probably the most common use for basswood besides wood carving. But it varies so strongly from tree to tree and where it grows.
Okay.
And so for quality wood carving basswood comes from a linden tree. You need a linden tree that grows more preferably in a meadow, not on a hillside.
Okay.
And you need one that grows, and I forget the latitude. There's a certain, no, wait a minute. Latitudes go east to west, longitudes go north and south.
Yeah, don't ask me.
Anyways, there's a certain area that goes across North America, and it's pretty much worldwide.
Okay.
Because in Europe, that same line around the globe, is where the best carving woods come from. And their lime wood is what they call it, but I think it's a relative to the linden tree, if I remember correctly. But anyways, so to get quality basswood, you need to be in about the middle of Minnesota, northern Wisconsin. Those are the areas that the best basswood comes out of. Michigan. And you can get good basswood pretty much anywhere, but the color's not going to be real white, and some of it's not going to be as easy to carve as others. So the closer you are to that area in Minnesota and Wisconsin, the better carving wood you're going to get. So whenever I had a chance, when I lived in Minnesota, I had as much carving wood as I wanted. But when we moved back here to Utah, well, we went from Minnesota to Texas first, and then came. I'm originally from Utah, and then we came home to Utah, and it was hard to get quality carving wood. And the other thing with basswood is the longer it sits, the harder it gets.
Oh.
And so you don't want basswood that was cut down 10 years ago, because it's not always the greatest wood. And so it's been a learning experience for me. And I kind of have a motto, and I tease people all the time about it, that there's a lot of people that'll carve aspen or cherry or alder because they think it's soft. Aspen is pretty good, but the other woods, I tease them, why life's too short to carve hardwood, you know.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah, I've tried to just sand hardwood. It takes forever. So,
But anyway, so the basswood, I would bring it home. I would run it through my benchtop planer, and in 10 years, I've gone through 3 of those. But I just didn't have space for a bigger planer, and but I'd run it through the planer, and I'm not real worried about getting it perfectly square. It just needs to be cleaned up on all sides, and then I'd cut it into blocks. And there's 2 carving shows here in Utah, one in Salt Lake in the spring, and then another one down in Spanish Fork in the fall.
okay.
And I would set up a table, and this started with a friend of mine that I worked with that was originally from Iowa, and I got him going on selling the basswood. He would go back to Iowa all the time and bring it back. And in fact, kind of a funny story, I worked with him. We both started working here in Salt Lake for the same company about the same time, and got to know him really well. And he had an 80-acre farm in northeastern Iowa.
Okay.
And not far from the Wisconsin border and the Minnesota border. But he would go back to Iowa 3-4 times a year. And most of the time it was to do just upgrades, check on his property, get together with friends. And to get the agricultural tax break, he managed the hardwood trees on his 80 acres. And so he's got groves of walnut trees that he planted 20 years ago that are starting to look like pretty nice trees. And he'll probably never harvest them in his lifetime, but they're there and they add value to the property. And but anyways, I was always interested what he was doing when he'd go back because of my experience in lumber. And he knows trees really well. Doesn't know anything about woodworking, but he knows the lumber industry or the lumberjack industry, whatever you want to call it.
Logging, lumber.
Logging, yeah.
Sawmills,
He understands that real well. And one time he's going back and I asked him what he's doing. He says, I've got 2 linden trees I got to cut down. And I said, oh, are you going to take them to the mill and get them milled up? He goes, no, I'm going to burn them. They're a trash tree. And I said, well, how big are they? And he goes, oh, the trunks are probably 12, 13 inches around. And I says, well, can you bring me back maybe 20 inches of one of the trunks? And he wanted to know why. And I told him it's a good carving wood. And if they're growing in the right place, and it could be some good wood to carve. And he said, sure. And so the next week he calls me up and says, hey, bring your truck to work. I've got that piece of trunk for you. And I get there, and he has 2 sections of trunk that are about 30 inches wide or diameter, 30 inches.
30 inch long. Okay.
Yeah, and they're 4 feet long. And he had to have a neighbor with a tractor come and put them in the back of his truck, and they just barely fit between the wheel wells.
Right.
And so we just backed our trucks up to each other. I rolled them into mine, took them home, and I wanted to pay him for them.
Right.
And he wouldn't take any money. I said, do you know how much money this is worth if it was cut up into blocks and dry? And he didn't have a clue. And I said, you got about $2,000 worth of wood here if they're cleaned up into blocks. And so the next trip out, he stopped at one of the local sawmills, and they just asked him about basswood. And they had just taken a bunch of basswood out of their kiln, and they were 2x6 boards that were 8 feet long. And he filled the bed of his truck up with them. He bought enough to fill the bed of his truck up with. And I took him to, or I introduced him to the Great Salt Lake Woodcarvers Club.
Okay.
And he went to their meeting, and he sold every piece of wood out of the back of his truck that one night. And so that's what started this whole adventure in selling wood, getting wood, is every time he'd go back, he'd bring back, it started out with just basswood, and then butternut, which is another good carving wood.
Okay.
And then he would advertise it on the, the classifieds, and then later into Marketplace, and just sell it out of his condo. He had a closet in the parking garage of his condo, and he'd just store it in there and sell it out of there. And then he started going to the Salt Lake show every year, and then the Provo show, and I would go help him sometimes.
Yeah.
And then he would get requests for other wood from people. And so he started bringing out walnut, a little bit of cherry, and sometimes maple. And I retired, and a month later, he quit and took a job back in Iowa. And when he did, he had a storage unit, just a small storage unit with a lot of walnut and a lot of basswood in it. And I told him that instead of hauling it back to Iowa, I says, well, I'll sell it for you. And so I got it, took it up to Layton and rented a storage unit there and started advertising and selling it. And I was having fun. It was a lot of fun. And I knew he had a barn full of wood. Mm-hmm. And so I called him up and says, hey, I want to come and get some more from you. And then that's where I'm at now is just...
So your friend that you worked with had two trees, started with two 30-inch pieces.
Yep.
And now you're to where you're at today. So is that basswood? Is that it's a natural grown? It's not like on a farm or anything.
Yeah.
So it's all natural grown out in the woods.
Yeah.
Because I know like they grow poplar up in like I'm from Oregon.
Oh yeah,
they have
those
poplar,
big orchards along the highways.
Yeah,
there.
along the freeway there, they grow poplar in rows, and But all that carving wood is natural. It's not farm grown.
Most of what, I don't think anybody sees the value in raising linden trees for carving wood.
Well, I guess for just
I know in Iowa they'll go in and clear out these areas. They don't clear cut them.
Right.
They'll go in and the farmers. There's a lot of farmers that in the wintertime will cut trees and sell them to the mills stuff, or they'll need a little extra money because they want to build a new barn, and so they get a hold of a sawmill and they'll come out and measure trees and take trees off their properties and stuff.
So the folks out in the Midwest, they harvest them from their land.
Yeah.
The sawmills out there sawmill them down, and then they kiln them, dry them, right?
Yeah.
And then you buy them from your friend, and then
so interestingly, most woods are nicer to work with if they're not kiln dried.
Oh yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
And there's a book by James Krenoff. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Never heard of him.
Really interesting book. He's got 4 or 5 books that he wrote before he passed away, all about woodworking. But the first one I found fascinating. He talks a lot about the grain of wood and stuff. But if you're using hand tools, especially hand planes and hand saws and stuff, he says you can't get a better finish than using a piece of wood that was air dried. Oh. The problem with that though is bugs, and so we try to kiln dry almost all of the wood that I bring out because I don't want to deal with bugs.
Right.
And you get logs that are cut down, and then if we're getting the bigger slabs, the 2 to 3 inch thick slabs of wood, there's always going to be bugs in them. It's just because usually you cut it down, you let it sit for 6 months to a year, and then you put it in the kiln to dry it, the thicker boards. If it's a 1 inch thick board or what, you can usually cut those and stick them right in the kiln. Not the best practice, but it's doable. But so the kiln, they keep it about 120 degrees temperature to dry the wood out. and then the last 3 or 4 days, 5 days, they'll bump temperature up to about 140 to 150 to kill all the bugs that are in it. And but I have brought wood back that had bugs in it, and I've sold it, and some people get real upset about that, and other people don't. That was early when I first started doing this. And the basswood, to get back to what you're saying, the basswood, I don't like to kiln dry it. And if it's got bark on it, then we'll kiln dry it. If it doesn't, we try to air dry it. Jim's got an old farmhouse on his property, and we'll stack the wood up in the attic of that farmhouse and leave it there for the summer. And that usually gets hot enough that it gets it down low enough that where we can bring it back here. And that's another problem between Iowa and here is the humidity. You know, you pull wood out of the kiln that you get it down to 8-9% or lower in the kiln, and then you pull it out and you put it in a barn and keep it in Iowa for a year. A year later, it's up about 12%, you know. And then you bring it here at 12% in the summertime, and that moisture gets sucked out so fast it starts cracking or warping or twisting. But that's a whole science that I wish I understood better, because I understand the basics of drying wood, but there's so much to it, and it changes with every species. You know, I bought the wood that I can't get from Jim. Jim's my buddy, and I get most of my wood from him.
Right.
And what I can't get from him, there's 2 or 3 other guys in Nebraska and western Iowa that I'll stop after I go to Jim's. I'll give them a call, see what they have. We're getting some weird beeps there.
Yeah.
We run out of time.
No, I don't. One of my cameras
I'm talking too much.
No, well, one of my cameras is. I don't know why it turned off, but we'll start that one back up again.
Okay.
The good one's going though.
Okay.
So
at any rate,
yeah.
So one, this was 2 years ago. I stopped to buy some aromatic cedar, Eastern aromatic cedar, and because Jim doesn't like messing with it, he doesn't feel like there's enough money in it usually to justify him cutting it and drying it and then me hauling it out here. There's just not, some woods there's not enough markup. You know, red oak's another one. We don't buy red oak or alder because we can't cut it, dry it, and haul it out here for the cost that you can buy it at the lumber mills here, or the lumber yards that are here selling it. So, but anyways, there was a guy that was selling some aromatic cedar really cheap, and so I stopped, and it was freshly cut. He'd cut it the day before, and I'm checking the moisture on it, and it's like 20%. It's over 20%.
Okay.
And my trailer, I use a 14-foot dump trailer.
Okay.
Because it's low profile and it holds a lot of weight. And going across Nebraska and Iowa, Nebraska and Wyoming, the wind is horrible. I started out with a box trailer, and fuel mileage was low, and the roof got tore off my box trailer twice because of the wind. So anyways, I used this dump trailer, and it was full, and I bought maybe 100 board feet of this cedar and just put it on the very top of the trailer, and then strapped it down, and by the time I got home, this was summertime, so driving across Nebraska and Iowa, or Minnesota, or Wyoming, excuse me.
Yeah, so for anybody out there that not familiar, if you're watching this from another country, Wyoming and Nebraska are two of our flattest, windiest states.
Yeah, very windy.
And so, driving across those two states, and it's probably 100 degrees, right?
It seems like it doesn't matter which way you're going, you always have a headwind,
right,
too.
Yeah, so, okay.
But anyway, so the wood... the moisture in wood, for those of you who don't know, it's kind of like straws, a whole bunch of straws that are put together that are filled with moisture. And so when you dry wood, the moisture goes out the ends of the wood. Okay. It doesn't come out of the sides or the top or not.
I didn't know that.
It always has to come out the ends. And so I've got that wood stacked on the top of the trailer, and I'm driving along, and I get home, and just for grins, I get the moisture meter out and check it again, and it was at 9%. From the wind hitting it, and cedar's fairly porous wood, but it just blew that moisture right out of it.
Sucked it dry,
it's the craziest thing.
That's cool.
But,
Right on. We got another cool thing we're gonna do. We're gonna go do with Tom. He's gonna show us his he has his little operation. But it's cool to sit down in the shop and talk about wood and a little bit of your history and all that. But we're gonna go see really cool stuff with Tom up at his place, and that'll come up next. And
we're gonna go on a field trip.
You're gonna go on a field trip. Stick around. All right, we're back with Tom, and we went on a little field trip up to Tom Checketts' World of Wood. I don't know, that's probably not what you call it, but that's what I'm going to call it. So, let's go over what we got here, Tom. We're at a storage place, and this is where you store all your stuff you get from back east.
Yeah, most of this comes out of Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota area, and then occasionally I'll stop in Nebraska or other parts of Iowa and get wood. But most of the wood I get comes from one guy in Iowa. Just to give you a rundown, I work out of storage units, keeps my costs down. I meet customers by appointment. I don't have set hours or anything. So it's kind of a hobby business for me in retirement. I started out with just this one unit originally. Right now, everything in here, all the live edge stuff standing up is walnut, except for a little bit of ash and cedar here in the front. On the lumber rack in the back.
Yeah, we can walk back there.
So this unit's going to get everything pulled out of it within the next month and restacked and reorganized. I have to do that about once every 3 or 4 months. It's amazing how quickly things get messed up in here. The lumber rack, everything from this eye level down is all walnut. Mostly 4/4, 5/4, and then there's some thicker stuff, some 8/4 in there. Not a real lot of 8/4. The next row is all white oak. Just kind of a mix of 4/4 and a little bit of 8/4. Most of it's from Iowa. The stuff in that last section over there, I buy lumber wherever I can. If I can buy it at a price that justifies being able to bring it back and sell it, then I do. But that came from a cabinet shop that went out of business a couple of years ago. I bought about 300 board feet from them. That's all I have left. Up on top, I have a little bit of alder, aromatic cedar in the center, and then hickory on that end. So that's what I have in this unit. When this unit's cleaned up and you can get down the side, I have a bunch of discounted boards that I keep down the side. Most of the lumber I sell by board foot measurements. The stuff down the side, I just put a dollar price on it. That's usually about $1 to $2 a board foot cheaper.
And to remind everybody what a board foot is, it's 12 inches by 12 inches by 1 inch, right?
Yeah, so 144 cubic inches.
144 is one board foot, and that's generally how most lumberyard or hardwood lumber is sold, is by the board foot, right?
Correct.
So,
yeah.
Okay, let's move on. All this amazing live edge, this is all live edge walnut right here.
Yeah, all this in here is walnut.
Walnut. That's awesome.
Pretty stuff, yeah.
Yeah, walnut's it's amazing looking wood, but it's crazy spendy.
Then this next unit, a lot of my bigger slabs, I usually 30 inches is about as big as I get. Anything bigger is kind of too hard for me to handle. I don't have a forklift or anything. Everything's moved by hand, and I try not to bother my son and my son-in-law to come and help me move things. I try to do as much of it by myself as I can, but most of the stuff over on this side's walnut. Again, a lot of walnut. That's the best seller, the most popular still. White oak has kind of increased in favorability, but
I heard that the other day at the sawdust session at the community wood shop. Is white oak's kind of back on a trend up into like high end homes and things. So
it is. It's been in the architectural magazines for about a year and a half. They've been showing stuff out of white oak quite a bit. I still can't sell it for what they're selling it for at the lumber yards, but in this side, it's just kind of a mix of stuff from here on. Some thinner butternut slabs, a little bit of walnut in front, a lot of butternut and spalted maple behind all this mess. Then up here I have just kind of a mix of lumber that I don't have a place for in the rack. There's some maple here and some wormy white oak, which is kind of neat in the back. I quite like the looks of it. It's got a lot of small holes from powder post beetles all through it. Gives it a neat appearance. These short pieces are just a bunch of spalted maple and spalted hickory. They make really cool charcuterie boards. I've sold a lot of them for that. I've got quite a few of those in the rack. I've got 4 sections of cherry here, some thicker white oak here. These 2 sections are spalted maple. That's just a little bit of regular maple, and all this is out here because it's too hard to put away until I make some more room for it. Some sycamore, some birch, a little bit of sycamore on top of the birch, some spalted maple, 2-inch thick spalted maple here. Up on top on that side is more of these short maple and hickory live edge pieces. And then in the middle here's all butternut. And these thicker pieces up here are basswood. And then that little stack in the corner is, that's why I do this business, is when I unload a trailer, if there's a board that has really unique grain or figure, or it ends up there, and it's not for sale. I don't know what I'm going to do with those, but there's a couple of beautiful quilted cherry boards. There's a couple of curly cherry too, and then some ambrosia beetle maple. But anyways, it's fun.
So let me ask a question. You get all this wood from the Midwest or closer to the East Coast. There's a lot higher moisture content in the air out west or out east versus here. We're in Utah, very dry climate. This is kiln dried wood, right, from the lumber mill?
Probably 95% of it's been kiln dried.
So I guess my question is even kiln dried wood, does it get even drier out here in Utah?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just because of our environment, right? Because we're such a dry climate in this area. So.
I those shorter pieces of maple back there.
Yeah.
I brought those back, and they had been kiln dried, but then they'd been stored in a barn for quite a few years, and they had bugs in them, really bad when I brought them out. And so and the moisture on them was almost 18%. So I questioned the fact whether they were actually kiln dried. The guy I bought them from said they were. I didn't buy them from my normal source. And so I had them stickered here, and I had 2 stacks of them that were about 8 feet high, stickered, and they're 4 feet by 4 feet stacks, and I let them air dry for the summer. Moisture got down to 9 to 10%, but they still had the bugs in them. And so they didn't have powder post. It was bigger. They weren't termites, but I don't know what kind of beetle it was, but it was mostly in the bark area. So more than likely they hadn't been kiln dried.
Gotcha.
But so I got them down 9% here, and then there's a guy not far from here that has one of those eye drying kilns. And I paid him and put them in it, and I told him, I says they're dry. I just need the bugs killed.
Right.
So he put them in his kiln for 4 or 5 days, And those eye-drying kilns, there's a lot to them.
Mm-hmm.
They actually measure the amount of moisture that comes out. So those 2 stacks that were, they were stickered, but they were about 7-8 feet high, 4x4, in his kiln for 4 days, and it sucked out 26 gallons of moisture.
Wow.
And they were down to 7% by the time I took them out.
Nice.
So,
well, for anybody that's watching that doesn't know what a kiln is, it's just like it's a big oven, sort of, right? Or is that right?
That's the easiest way to describe it.
It's a big oven that you can. So these great big pieces, you can put them in, depending on how big your kiln is.
Yeah.
And it dries it takes the moisture out of the wood and kills bugs. So
And
all right,
kills
continuing on. Sorry, I was
All
trying
right.
to question.
So this unit, other than these short pieces of sycamore, everything is live edge. Some of it has been straight lined on one side, but it's all live edge in some form or another. But got some swamp oak, these burl pieces here, swamp oak.
What is swamp oak? That's for us.
It's a variety of white oak.
Okay.
There's over 100 species of white oak,
Okay.
and that's one of them.
Okay.
But these, I love these 2 maple pieces in front. Really make some neat epoxy pieces.
Those could make some cool tables.
Yeah, but they're kind of soft, so it's got to be done by somebody that really knows epoxy well, can harden the wood up first a little bit. A lot of hard maple, which the moisture thing again, this was dry in Iowa, which is 13-14% is considered dry there. Bring it out here. It's easily down around 8% right now, just from sitting here. I've had that stuff for a couple of years, but it's all twisted because it dried too quickly. I brought it out in the summer and it was too fast of a change. So most of these slabs have twists in them. A lot of them will be cut up into smaller pieces to be able to sell them, or somebody that's going to buy them will use them for smaller pieces. They won't be able to use it for a tabletop.
Right.
And at least they won't be able to keep the thickness. But a few pieces of cherry, some box elder, aromatic cedar. Then most of the stuff from here back around the corner is walnut again. A lot of 4-quarter and 5-quarter walnut. I sell a ton of these to people that are making charcuterie boards or the river table cutting boards. I know the community wood shop teaches classes to do the epoxy cutting boards, and these are the pieces that they use for that class. Then I've got a little bit of soft maple here. Behind this is some catalpa, and then white oak.
White. Oh yeah.
And this stack here, a few pieces of walnut on top, but most of the stuff underneath is all white oak also. So good variety of stuff here. And then across the driveway.
Yeah, let's go over there. That's a little bit different.
This is
we talked a lot about this wood, I think.
yeah,
in
the
first part
carving
of
wood, basswood.
Basswood.
So this is what I do down at the wood shop is I'll take the bigger pieces and mill them up, run them through the joiner and planer, and then cut them into blocks to sell at the wood carving shows. In here, everything in this first section here is all basswood. I sell 5 species of wood.
All right.
We gotta wait. We're close.
We're by the Air Force Base, and I'm actually up here, and they're flying. So
Just outside of Hill Air Force Base.
Yeah.
There'll be another one following. They're usually in pairs or triples.
yeah.
So anyways, I sell 5 different species of carving woods at the carving shows. Basswood's my biggest seller. Here comes the other one. So basswood, it's light colored, tight grain, fairly lightweight, carves nice, doesn't chip out as you're carving it. The next wood I sell is Jelutong. It actually comes from looks real similar to the basswood. There's a little bit more of a grain in it, but this is a tree that in the Indonesia, the boards I bought came out of Indonesia. I bought them from a wood importer out of Texas, and they they are the trees are grown, and they tap the trees, and they use the sap to make latex. So today, most latex is synthetic, but if it's not a synthetic latex, it's made out of the sapwood of this. In fact, back in the 1950s, 1960s, most chewing gum was made out of the sap wood of the jelutong. So that's a worldwide. That's probably the most common carving wood. Here in the U.S., basswood is going to be the most common carving wood. Then I have butternut.
What is butternut? You said that a couple times. I don't know. What is butternut?
Butternut is a close relative of walnut.
Okay.
In fact, one of its nicknames is white walnut.
Oh, I've heard that.
So it's a lighter color, grains almost identical. One more jet. And anyways, the grain's almost identical to walnut. It's just lighter in color.
Okay.
See if I have a piece close by that's been run through the planer.
So that's,
I don't know, get in the sunlight.
Oh, now I get the shadows, but yeah.
Yeah, so this is but it's softer, a lot softer than walnut. Carves nice. The only problem with it is you'll get chip out. You know, pieces will chip out if you carve in the wrong direction.
Okay.
So let's see. Oh, the other one is catalpa that I keep, and it color-wise, grain-wise, it looks a lot like butternut.
Okay.
And it grows all across the U.S. It's a great wood for carvings that you're going to keep outside. It's very rot-resistant wood, kind of like cedar.
Okay.
A little bit harder to carve. That's the other thing. Basswood carves really nice with hand tools, knives and chisels. It does not do very well with power carving, like Dremels and stuff, because it'll get fuzzy when you carve it with power tools. Jelutong carves real nice with hand tools or power tools.
Okay.
Butternut doesn't do all that great with power tools. Does okay with hand tools. Catalpa does great with power tools. So a lot of it depends on the type of carving you're going to do. On this rack back here, I have Tupelo. And Tupelo is a great carving wood. It grows in swampy areas, and the best carving wood is the part of the trunk that grows underwater. So they'll go in and dig those up for carving wood. Tupelo traditionally is what waterfowl carvers use. It's used to make decoys. It's very lightweight, almost like balsa wood. It has a tendency, if you're using hand tools, it does okay with knives as long as you're carving with the grain in the right direction. But if you want to carve with chisels, it has a tendency to crush the wood instead of carve. But with power tools, it holds detail really well.
Interesting.
So the waterfowl carvers like that. And then I do always have some aromatic cedar wood for carvers. They like doing small projects. I don't like carving cedar. It's a little too hard, but
and everybody knows what aromatic. That's the cedar that has a really good smell.
Yeah.
Everybody loves that really cool smell, cedar smell.
I sell quite a bit of it at the carving shows. Pieces this size, they'll make spoons and stuff out of. But I don't like carving it. And then in the back is just some of my carving stock that needs to be cleaned up. In this storage unit, I also keep a lot of cookies. You know, a cookie is a slice of a log that's, instead of slicing the board, you slice it this way. I have all sizes from 4 or 5 inches up to, I've got some back in the back underneath these boards. You can't see them very well.
There's some great big ones back in the back there.
They're about 40 inches across. So I just a mix of everything in here. Some burls, box elder burls here. The burls are, the best way to describe them is it's a wart that grows on the side of a tree. But when you get it, the grain inside there is just gorgeous. So whenever I can get a burl wood, I always do. And then a little bit of turning stock, stuff for pin blades and some spindle stuff and whatnot. But cottonwood bark is another one that wood carvers like to carve.
Huh.
And cottonwood grows pretty much anywhere.
Right.
But the best cottonwood bark to carve comes from way up north, Canada, along that U.S.-Canadian border, or even further north, because it's colder climate, it gets thicker. So you want 3 to 4 inch thick cottonwood bark to carve. So
cool. Well,
so that's an extent.
Well, Tom, this has been a fun interview. It's gone way on. I mean, there's just so much when you're talking about wood. There's tons to talk about. Shout out! I know I've seen you on Facebook. I don't know what shout out your Facebook, because I've seen it.
Tom Checketts Lumber on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, and you don't, like you said, you don't have set hours. You're by appointment. So what's the best way to reach? Is it through Facebook and Instagram?
Messenger. I think on Facebook in the about info, I have my phone number in there too.
Okay.
So prefer texting, but Facebook Messenger works too.
Okay.
So.
And once again, any words? Wow. You gotta love the Jets. Any word of advice for turners, or even just makers, builders? Not maker. I don't want to use the word maker. Any builders for young old people, somebody that wants to get into it. What would you? What would your word be to somebody that's like, hey, I want to get into wood carving or turning or building?
To steal a phrase from some other company, just do it. I don't know. You just got to jump in and do it. And you make one thing, I guarantee it's going to be the crappiest, ugliest thing you ever made. Yeah. But you made it, it feels good, and it gives you the confidence to make something else. And every item you make, you get better. I have my first carving that I did 30 years ago sitting on my bookshelf, and it's the ugliest carving in our house. But I keep it, and it's just a reminder of where I've gone, how far I've gone.
So if you want to get something from Tom Checketts Wood, right?
Lumber.
Tom Checketts Lumber on Facebook. Yeah. All his contacts. I'll link the description there. And then I'd like to shout out again community. I mean, we're not at the shop right now, but I wouldn't have met Tom unless I was at part of the Community Wood Shop SLC, and shout them out. And I'll link their website in the description. And then I want to always shout out my dad for all the equipment and say thanks for that. And if you want to try woodworking, look up the Community Wood Shop SLC. We have tons of classes, and we use Tom's wood all the time. Lumber. We'll use Tom's lumber all the time. And thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and this will be on my SWG's Woodworking Off the Bench podcast channel. Thanks for watching. See ya.
Thanks, Sheldon.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.